This is a trigger as it comes off the printer. You'll see that there's bridging material to keep the hot plastic from sagging down as it's printing. And there's also some bridging material here. This is going to need to be removed, and this will need to be removed in here. These holes are a little undersized, so they'll need to be drilled out too. They act as very nice pilots, and I use a 1/8 on this one and a 3/32 on this. I like to keep the bridging material in the trigger while I'm drilling. So drilling these holes out will be the first step. After you drill the holes out, I remove the bridging material here, and then I remove the bridging material here. I take a very, very fine file and I just knock off all the fuzz on the inside, and then I take a, say 400, and you don't want to remove material, you just want to clean it up so that it's nice and smooth and the parts can move freely. They'll never get hung up on anything, the sear and the hook disconnector. And then I usually like to take maybe some 400 or 600 where this bridging material was, because it leaves a very rough surface, and you can clean it up pretty nice. I have a trigger here that you can see I sanded it with some, I think 400 or 600, and it cleaned up pretty nice. One-eighth. Three 30-seconds. You see that it still has the bridging material. Okay, now I'm going to remove the bridging material. You can feel that it sinks in when you find the right location at the top of the bridge here. Uses the standard Ruger spring. Now I just like to take a pair of needle nose and grab everything front to back here and just squeeze it. And it comes right out. Also, the new design has a little button on the back. I'm going to drill that out, probably with the same 3 30-seconds. Take a little file and just knock off the it's filleted on the inside. That's why I'm using a round file. And I'm just knocking off the excess plastic. I'm not trying to remove any material. This is a piece of 200. It's probably overkill. You want that inside channel nice and smooth so that the parts don't have any interference. Again, just knocking off the plastic that's protruding from the printing. You get the idea. Clean. And then I'm going to drill another 3/32 hole right here for the trigger stop, and or whatever I have a properly sized set screw or grub screw or whatever you want to call it. Now would be a good time to compare the printed trigger that you've removed all the bridging material from with the stock trigger to see if the dimensions are similar. I like to check and make sure that the wall thicknesses are the same or similar, and that the channels are close. And the most important dimension is the pinholes. You want to make sure that they're the same on center. This seems to be the only critical dimension. It is not necessary to be exactly like the OEM, except in this dimension. So if you've got the holes right, it's probably going to work fine. One of the prerequisites to being a beta tester is you have to know how to do a trigger job, because you're going to have to polish the sear. It's a common trigger job. And also the inside of the hook here. These have to be silky smooth in order for the torsion spring to be able to work the trigger, in order for it to reset. Now, if you have the competence to do this, and I will ask that you do before I give one away, usually you have a little cheater sear pivot pin here. It's not the full length, so that you can insert the trigger down into the trigger housing and then push it out with the full length pin. It appears to function perfectly. But there's only one way to tell. That's to put it in the gun. But the thing I like about using the 1/8 and the 3/32 is that it does give you a nice, a loose press fit, even though that's really an oxymoron, I think. Everything stays intact well, so that you can you don't have a lot of trouble inserting it into the trigger housing. spend a little more time cleaning it up. So, you know, if you want to put in the time with the fine sandpaper, you can get the rough printing marks out of it. But as long as that channel's smooth, it'll work. You're going to want to trim off about 3/16 of the top of that torsion spring so it clears the bolt holdback part. I'm using a paper clip to hold the spring back behind the pinhole that the bolt hold open part goes behind. So that's always a tricky one, and hopefully that'll help. That's the torsion spring that I use to reset the trigger. Okay, one thing I learned the hard way is that the torsion spring on the left side of the hammer that resets the trigger, the top must clear the bolt holdback piece. So you're going to probably have to clip about 3/16 of an inch off the top of the spring. You want to keep enough so that it clears this pin. You want to keep enough so that it clears this pin, but it can't go much above it. Otherwise, it won't clear the bottom of the bolt holdback lever, and it won't allow, the bolt will lock back, but it won't unlock automatically. And we've all got the fix in for that, so we want it to unlock automatically when we just pull back on it. So keep that in mind when you're doing the install. Go get 'em, boys.